All right, let's talk about silver. Because this precious metal isn't just shining right now, it's absolutely exploding. We're seeing its price surge to historic record breaking highs. So, over the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly what's behind this incredible rally, and maybe more importantly, what it could mean for the global economy. Let's dive right in.
Okay, let's just start with the headline number, because it's a big one. Get this. In just the last year, silver's price has skyrocketed by nearly 150%. I mean, that is a massive, massive gain. And you can bet it's put investors all over the world on high alert.
And what's really wild is that the pace is actually accelerating. In just the first 2 weeks of 2026, the price leaped another 25%. So yeah, this is not some slow, gradual climb. We are talking about a truly explosive surge. So the big question is, what is really going on here, right? We see these huge numbers, but what's actually fueling this incredible run? Is this just another temporary bubble that's going to pop, or are we witnessing a really fundamental shift in the entire market?
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll recap this astonishing surge. Then we'll get into the fundamentals of silver itself. After that, we'll look at what really moves the market, talk about a new wave of investors, and finally, we'll ask the big one: can this rally actually continue?
Okay, first up, let's put some hard numbers on the surge we've been talking about. So, back in January 2026, silver didn't just break a record, it completely shattered its all-time high, soaring past $93 an ounce. Think about that. This wasn't just, a 5-year high or something. This was the highest price ever recorded for the metal. Ever. And just to put that in perspective for you, the price has basically tripled in just the last 12 months. When you see that kind of movement in a major global commodity, well, you've got to take a much closer look at what's really going on underneath the surface. And to do that, to really find that why, we first have to go back to basics and understand what silver actually is and where its value even comes from. So, at its core, silver is, of course, a precious metal, but its value comes from this really unique combination of properties. And the big one, the really crucial one, is that it has the highest electrical conductivity of any metal on Earth. That one fact makes it absolutely indispensable for so much of modern industry. And this really highlights silver's dual nature. It's got two sides to it. On one hand, it's used in stuff like jewelry and coins, but on the other, it's a critical component in all our electronics and historically in photography too. And of course, it's an investment. It's this diverse demand coming from both industry and investors that's so key to understanding its price. And man, it's a story that goes back for thousands of years. We're talking from the very first mines in ancient Anatolia, to fueling the entire Roman Empire, to sparking a massive rush in the American West. For centuries, it was the backbone of currency. The US only stopped putting silver in its everyday coins back in 1964. It's got a long, long history. Okay, so we know what silver is, and we know it's been valuable for a very long time. Now let's connect all that to its price today. We need to look at the key factors that actually move the silver market.
You see, silver's price isn't random at all. It's driven by some really key global forces. For starters, you've got your basic supply and demand, of course. Then there's inflation, and also the strength of the US dollar. See, silver is priced in dollars, so when the dollar's weaker, it's cheaper for investors in other countries to buy it, which boosts demand. And finally, when there's geopolitical or economic uncertainty, well, people rush to so-called safe haven assets like silver.
And wouldn't you know it, right now we are seeing what you could call a perfect storm of these factors. You've got the market expecting the Fed to cut interest rates, you've got a weak dollar, you've got global debt on the rise, and you have all sorts of geopolitical tensions making investors pretty nervous. Put it all together, and every single one of those things is pushing the demand for silver higher and higher. But hold on, because there's another really important piece to this puzzle. It's not just what's happening, but who is doing the buying and why. We're seeing a whole new wave of investors flooding into the market, and honestly, they're behaving very differently than they have in the past. Just check out this number. In the last month alone, retail investors, we're talking everyday people like you and me, not the big Wall Street institutions, they've poured over $921 million into silver-backed ETFs. Now, these are just funds that trade on a stock exchange, but are backed by actual physical silver. That is a massive, massive inflow of cash from Main Street. And this is really important. This doesn't seem to be a repeat of that silver squeeze we saw back in 2021. Remember that? That was mostly seen as a kind of social media-driven frenzy. No, this time is different. Analysts are calling it a structural accumulation. That's a fancy way of saying it's a more deliberate, more thoughtful, long-term investment strategy. In fact, this quote from the research firm Vanda, I think it captures this shift perfectly. They said, retail investors are no longer just dipping in. They are fundamentally reallocating. What does that mean? It means people aren't just taking a little gamble or speculating. They are actively making silver a core, permanent part of their long-term investment portfolios.
And all of this, it brings us to our final and, let's be honest, our most important question. We've seen the historic numbers, we understand the economic drivers, and now we see this new type of investor behavior. So, what happens next? Can this rally actually keep going?
So yeah, with all this new context, the question really becomes if this big shift in investor strategy is for real, if silver is truly becoming a core asset for millions of people, has a new, much higher floor been set for its price? Could this surge actually last in a way that previous rallies just haven't?
Ultimately, what all this seems to suggest is that for a growing number of people, silver is becoming way more than just a shiny metal. Its rising price is being seen as a message. It's a signal about their very real concerns over inflation, over debt, and just the overall stability of the global economy. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most valuable takeaway of all.